It's late at night. You spent the day exploring the Rocky Mountain National Park, home to wildlife including elk and bears, plus miles of beautiful trails. Exhausted, you're looking forward to a good night's sleep, but you're not expecting it. You've been upgraded to a haunted room, and with nervous excitement, you drift off to sleep shortly after 10. In your dreams, you hear loud footsteps, but they feel too real. As you're coming out of your reverie, on your neck, you feel a cold kiss. Your stomach drops. You fear there's an intruder. You freeze, but you're definitely awake. As you take a peek from underneath the bed covers, you see the outline of a cowboy at the edge of your bed. His faceless head turns toward you, and he tips his hat and disappears. Tears well up in your eyes. It's been an eternity since you've taken your last breath. And just as your lungs are screaming out, a huge bang on the wall shakes you out of your stupor. In your terror, you're satisfied because you just met Rocky Mountain Jim. I'm Nadine Bailey, and this is Haunted Canada. Join me as we journey to a place known worldwide for paranormal activity, so much that it inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. Today, we travel to Estes Park, Colorado. This is the story of the Stanley Hotel. Atop a hill overlooking the town, about 5 miles from the entrance of the Rocky Mountain National Park, sits a luxurious and elegant Stanley Hotel. It resembles a palace with a terracotta roof and a sweeping white wide veranda. It's a crowning jewel set against the backdrop of the Continental Divide and Lumpy Ridge, with incredible views of the mountains. First opened in 1909 by Freeland Oscar Stanley as a resort for the upper-class Easterners and a health retreat for sufferers of tuberculosis. F.O. was a wealthy businessman who, along with his twin brother Francis, co-founded the Stanley Motor Carriage Company. They invented the Stanley steam engine, which was a seamless-powered horseless carriage. In 1903, F.O. Stanley contracted tuberculosis and was told by doctors that he only had about 6 months to a year to live and was advised to seek a higher and drier climate. He was scared and losing hope, so the 53-year-old Stanley and his wife Flora traveled by train from their New England home to Denver. They had heard that Estes Park would be an ideal place for his recovery. From Denver, Flora Stanley and her Swedish maid traveled by train, then took a conventional stagecoach to Estes Park. She was quite taken by the beauty of the area and the high mountain peaks. Meanwhile, Freeland took his personal automobile, a legendary Stanley steamer. Freeland and his hissing contraption successfully made the trip, and he joined his wife for a 3-month stay at the Elkhorn Lodge. During that time, his weight increased from 118 pounds to a respectable 147 pounds, and he regained his strength. With a successful stay, the couple returned to their Newton, Massachusetts home, but promised to return to their newfound love in the Colorado mountains. They came back again in 1904, and again in 1905 and in 1906. Stanley constructed a gracious home on Wonderview Avenue, where he spent the next 37 summers. He also teamed up with Burton Sanborn to purchase the 6,000-acre Dunraven Ranch, formerly the Estes Park Development Company. Stanley then got to work, first by improving the roads to Estes Park, then by constructing a large, modern Georgian-style hotel that would have been a better fit in New England than in the rustic Colorado area. From 1907 to 1909, work progressed on the hotel using lumber from the forest fire in Hidden Valley. But Estes Park didn't have electricity, which a modern hotel required. So Stanley built a hydroelectric plant to provide power, and by June of 1909, the hotel was ready for its first guests. The Georgian-style hotel was built on top of limestone and quartz and officially opened its doors on July 4, 1909, to attract the rich and the famous, and was also a retreat for those suffering from tuberculosis. It had 100 rooms, and most of the interior was carved by hand, and the furniture was from the turn of the century, with the ceilings featuring original Tiffany glass. Walking into the main lobby is like stepping back into time to when the horses and carriages were the main form of transportation. History lives in every corner. While the Stanley Hotel is known to host thousands of visitors each and every year, it is even more famous for being the inspiration for the Overlook Hotel in Stephen King's 1977 best-selling novel, The Shining. And it's for good reason. In September of 1974, Stephen King and his wife Tabitha were heading out of town for the weekend and were traveling through Estes Park when they got stuck in a storm. Due to the dangerous winter weather and the closed roads, they decided to stay the night at the Stanley Hotel. As it was the end of the season and the hotel was closing the very next day, the couple booked a room and were the only guests checked in. Immediately, the author said that the hotel was, quote, the perfect setting for a ghost story. He explored the empty hotel just after having dinner that evening as the music played throughout the vacant hallways and the grand ballrooms. Stephen King said in an interview that, quote, except for our table, all the chairs were up on the tables. So the music is echoing down the hallways, and I mean, it was like God had put me there to hear that and to see those things. What he experienced were encounters with ghostly children and the sounds of a phantom party with mysterious figures in the ballroom. He has also said that he saw the apparition of an old lady. With all those paranormal experiences swirling in his mind, the couple entered room 217 to try and sleep that night. For Stephen King, rest wouldn't come that night. Instead, he said, quote, I dreamed of my 3-year-old son running through the corridors, looking back over his shoulder, eyes wide, screaming. A fire hose was chasing him. I woke up with a tremendous jerk, sweating all over, within an inch of falling out of bed. I got up, lit a cigarette, sat in a chair looking out the window at the Rockies. And by the time the cigarette was done, I had the bones of the book firmly set in my mind. End quote. 3 years later, King published The Shining. And if you're familiar with the book, you'll know that he included that nightmare scene in the book, but switched his 3-year-old with Danny Torrance. The Torrances are the family that the book and the movie follows. They go on a road trip to the Overlook Hotel because the dad has to make sure that the hotel boiler doesn't freeze. Upon their arrival, they learn the hotel's past and the sinister presence that lies within. And at the Stanley Hotel, there are many forces at play as well. There are so many ghosts wandering throughout that the staff keep a list of what rooms are haunted. In fact, it's considered one of the most haunted hotels in America, and room 217 is where we're going to head first. The room where Stephen King had the nightmare that inspired The Shining is one of the most haunted rooms at the hotel. It was originally the presidential suite, an L shape and a much larger room that was eventually divided into rooms 215 and 217. The following story comes from a 2014 interview with a then hotel archivist, Jenny Freitas, featured in the Trail Gazette. Legend has it that on the evening of June 25, 1911, a terrible thunderstorm settled in the area. For safety, all hotel guests were requested to gather in the lobby. While they waited, staff were tasked with lighting gas lamps throughout the property. One of them was a young chambermaid named Elizabeth Wilson. As Elizabeth walked throughout the darkened hallways, she came upon room 217. She didn't know that a silent killer was waiting just on the other side of the door, an odorless gas that had been leaking from one of the lamps. As she opened the door, the flame from her lit candle ignited a massive explosion. She was sent crashing into the McGregor dining room located directly beneath room 217, and 10% of the nearly 70,000 square foot hotel was destroyed. Miraculously, Elizabeth Wilson survived and only suffered 2 broken ankles. She eventually healed, and F.O. Stanley was kind enough to pay all of her medical bills until she recovered. Upon her return, Elizabeth Wilson was promoted to head chambermaid and worked at the Stanley Hotel until she died in the 1950s. But it seems that she didn't want to leave the hotel that she almost gave her life to. Many believe that she's still connected to room 217. When guests leave their bags in the room after check-in, they return to find that their luggage has been unpacked, while other guests have reported seeing their shoes lined up neatly at the end of the bed. Her spirit has also been known to fold guest clothing and put them neatly in the dresser drawers. Forever performing her duties, Elizabeth, or a shadow, is often seen passing through the walls of what was once a single room. But not all of her interactions with guests are as helpful. She doesn't appreciate unmarried couples sharing a room, and will often climb into bed with them, placing herself between the couple and forcing them apart. Today, room 217 is known as the Stephen King Suite and is the most requested room at the hotel. But he's not the only famous person to have checked into that room. In 1994, Jim Carrey was supposed to spend the night while filming Dumb and Dumber. You can see him in the hotel in the movie, as was one of the locations. So when filming wrapped, he decided to stay the night and selected the room that inspired Stephen King 20 years earlier. But he never made it through the night. Something spooked him so severely that he packed up his things that night and requested a different room. To this day, Carrey has never fully disclosed what exactly terrified him and hasn't addressed it publicly, but he also has never returned. These famous encounters with the paranormal have been a part of the Stanley Hotel, and they embrace it. They often provide ghost and history tours, and a psychic is available in the tea room for guests to hear their own fortune. Even more spooky are the nighttime tours of the property, where you get to see the entrance to the underground tunnels and explore the caves built under the hotel, which have high concentrations of limestone and quartz. They were used by employees back in the day to get from one place to another. Limestone and quartz are said to be high-energy holding elements for the paranormal. Aside from being just plain airy, there are reports of the smell of baked goods with no apparent source floating throughout the tunnels. This is believed to be from the former pastry chef that worked at the hotel when it first opened. There have also been sightings of a gray cat with glowing eyes, which is seen and then disappears. He isn't known to come from the pet cemetery, so maybe he simply lived in the tunnels since the beginning and has stuck around for some human interaction. But if you want to connect with those that have passed, you don't have to go too far. Some believe that the main staircase is a passage to the other side, which could explain the sheer number of spirits that reside inside the hotel. We'll continue our story on the main floor. Freeland Stanley loved billiards and fast cars, and we know he had a soft spot for his hotel, so it's no wonder that his ghostly figure is often seen in both the billiard room and the garage. His ghost is also reported to be seen hanging out at the bar area, where he and his friends sat many times visiting and partaking in their favorite whiskey. If you head to the 217 Wine Bar, located in the former music room behind a velvet rope, you'll find a 7.5-foot Steinway piano, a gift to Flora Stanley from her husband. She loved to entertain, and playing brought her such happiness that she would often sit for hours in front of the piano. She would play for her friends and family, and of course, any of the guests that were nearby. A fluent pianist, a favorite pastime of hers was playing the piano in the grand concert hall of the hotel. People reported hearing the piano playing well into the night. Some report seeing the keys on the piano moving. When someone gets too close, though, the music always stops. Never interrupt a musician while they're playing. Today, you can still catch a glimpse of Flora, as her spirit is known to watch over a grand piano to this day. She still keeps guard and keeps curious hands at bay, and has a penchant for tinkering around with the hotel's piano. But she's also known to roam the hotel, and along with a child, she may have been captured in a photo posted on Instagram April 12, 2016. Henry Yao, the Director of Public Relations and Promotions for the Children's Museum of Houston, posted a picture which seems to show two ghostly apparitions standing on a staircase. In the photo, a woman can be seen at the top of the stairs in a period outfit with a child beside her. He told KPRC2 News that he was visiting the area and wanted to see the hotel that inspired the story in The Shining. Yao was walking around the hotel after dinner, snapping photos, when he took the picture of the Stanley's famous lobby. He says that he purposely waited for the staircase to be empty so that he could get a good shot of it. In an interview with Colorado's 9 News, Yao said, quote, "I'm terrified of ghosts. I've always been superstitious. This has completely solidified my belief in ghosts. When I was taking this photo, there was nobody there," he said. "I didn't feel anything abnormal. It wasn't until the next morning when I realized the figure was in the photo." End quote. As for the fact that people have pointed out more than just one figure in the photo, Yao said, quote, "That gave me the chills." If Yao was scared that day, it's a good thing he didn't take those stairs to the 4th floor. In fact, only the most brave should ever go to the most haunted floor in the most haunted hotel in America. The 4th floor was originally the hotel attic, and the area was used to house women employed by the hotel, nannies, and children. As time went on and things changed, the 4th floor was renovated and turned into regular guest rooms. But this might be why guests report hearing the sounds of children running around, giggling, and playing, and some hotel tour guides believe a ghost of a child often plays with guests' hair. So there's nothing normal about the 4th floor. And we'll start in room 401, which, according to some, is the creepiest room in the hotel. It is thought to be haunted by an unfriendly male ghost. Women have claimed that they were inappropriately touched by an unknown presence while standing near the room's closet. They have felt someone or something playing with their hair and felt someone put their arm around their waist, while others have felt a phantom hand touching the back of their leg. If that creepiness is too much, then you can head over to room 407. That's where Lord Dunraven is said to linger. In the late 19th century, William Thomas Wyndham Quinn, also known as the Earl of Dunraven, visited Estes Park. The title visitor was an avid big game hunter and came to America to hunt. He claimed 15,000 acres of Estes Park Valley for a gaming preserve, but he wasn't much liked by the other settlers. After years of friction and litigation, Lord Dunraven left Estes Park in 1888 and never returned. Well, at least not during his lifetime. In 1907, he sold the acreage to Freeland Stanley, who ultimately built Stanley Hotel. So, Why would Lord Dunraven be part of the story? Many say that a spirit doesn't usually return to where it died, and that, instead, they often return to a familiar place. It could be a place that they loved, and it seems that Lord Dunraven loved his acreage because he has been seen in room 407. He stands in the corner of the room near the bathroom, observing guests who occupy his space. Witnesses have reported that the light in the corner of the room will turn on and off. When the light turns off, guests will tell the ghost that they are aware that he's there. Guests will then tell the ghost that they're only staying for 2 nights, and would he please turn the lights back on. And just like that, the lights turn on. Later that night, when guests have gone to bed and are trying to sleep, they keep hearing noises coming from the nearby elevator that's not being used at that time. Some have even seen a ghostly-looking face looking out from the window of room 407 when the room is not booked. And that's not all. Guests have felt like they're being tucked tightly into bed in the middle of the night. There was even a little boy who was staying in the room with his parents. He kept kicking off the blankets, but felt like someone or something kept covering him up during the evening and tucking him in. Other guests have felt someone watching over them and have felt the presence of someone sitting on the edge of their bed while they slept. When they awoke and turned on the lamp to check, the room was empty. If Lord Dunsmuir isn't your cup of tea, then you won't find solace in room 413. That's where many guests have reported seeing an older man dressed in early 1900s attire standing in the corner. In room 418, ghostly children are often heard laughing and playing with the hangers in the closet. They also like to play in the bathroom, turning on and off the lights. Creepiness lives on the 4th floor, because guests sleeping in room 428 often wake up to see a man dressed in a cowboy outfit standing at the end of their bed. Women have said that when they've woken up in the middle of the night, they've often seen a mysterious cowboy leaning over them and kissing them on the forehead. As soon as they're frightened out of bed, they look around for the intruder, but there's no one there. Many historians believe it to be the spirit of James Nugent, better known as Rocky Mountain Jim, who was a famous hunter and trapper. He lived on a cabin on the edge of Estes Park and was shot on June 18, 1874. Jim was killed by a man named Evans, an Englishman who had a daughter that Jim was enamored with. Soon after, a man named Hay came to manage Lord Dunsmuir's interests in the park. The young lady Jim had had his eye on became very much attached to Hay, and they were often seen riding together, which angered Mountain Jim. So on the day of the fatal shooting, Mountain Jim appeared at Evans' cabin, threatening to kill Evans and Hay if they dared to come out in the open. Instead, he was shot and lingered between life and death until sometime in September of 1874, when he died and was buried in the Mountain Home Cemetery, where his bones remain still to this day. His spirit, however, resides at the Stanley Hotel. Rocky Mountain Jim is one of many ghostly inhabitants. In room 302, guests have reported that the pictures will often fly off the wall and crash under the floor. It's not uncommon to find Flora Stanley in the grand concert hall that her husband built for her, where she remains in the afterlife, making beautiful music in her favorite place. But Flora isn't the only ghost in the grand hall. Paul was a jack of all trades, employed to enforce the 11 p.m. curfew at the hotel. Employees and guests have reported hearing someone telling them,
"Get out,"
late at night. One construction worker said that while he was at the concert hall working, he kept getting nudged by someone until he finally left the room. Tour group participants report that Paul flickers flashlights at their requests. Another ghost of the concert hall is Lucy. She is thought to be a runaway or an unhoused woman who sought refuge in the hotel basement in the early 1900s. Sadly, when Lucy was discovered, she wasn't given any sympathy and was thrown out of the hotel on a cold winter's night and froze to death. Although historians don't know her connection to the hotel pre-death, she definitely has stuck around. Much like Paul, she likes to flicker flashlights. Then there's the spirit of Eddie, a con who worked the lights during performances in the concert hall. To this day, lights will turn on and off, and staff believe that it's Eddie continuing his duties in the afterlife. Even the old ice house at the Stanley Hotel has a ghost. Before the Stanley Hotel had indoor refrigeration, large blocks of ice were used to keep things cold. The ice house was remodeled many years ago and turned into a museum where some of the old Stanley steamer cars can be found. It is also the home of Billy, a shy little boy that sometimes is captured in photos as a blurry image standing in the background. Many believe that it is Billy still wandering around the old ice house to this day. Buildings and caves are the only places you can experience the paranormal while staying at the Stanley Hotel. While the inside of the Stanley Hotel is chock full of ghosts, the surrounding grounds aren't less spooky. The hotel has a pet cemetery surrounded by a white picket fence with headstones and the pets' names carved into them. It's believed that a dozen or so graves are for the hotel staff pets, including Casey, Stanley Blue, 1, 2, and 3, and some of the headstones date back to the early 1960s. And there's no real way of knowing if this location also inspired Stephen King's novel, Pet Sematary. Regardless, if you're brave enough to visit the Stanley Hotel, you will easily see how it inspired The Shining. With so many spirits to encounter, it's no surprise that it's considered to be the most haunted hotel in America. Thank you for joining me as we explore the historic and haunted Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. Haunted Canada is sponsored by the Edmonton Ghost Tours. I will link it in the show notes. Haunted Canada is written and produced by me, Nadine Bailey, with senior producer Dila Velasquez. Production and sound design is by Rob Johnston, with help from Rosalind Kufer. If you'd like to support this podcast, please follow and share. And if you can give us a like and a 5-star written review, that is always appreciated. Also, you can follow me on our different social media platforms, or if you have a ghost story, haunting, or true crime that you would like for us to cover on this podcast, please email me through the website hauntedcanada.com. Thank you from all of us at Haunted Canada and Curious Cast. Have a good night, everyone, and stay haunted.